So offline or off camera, I started migrating uh, the the text to speech to a different setup so that I can. I was seeing some bugs, but the overall the architecture as it currently stands is pretty hacky and mixed up, and I wanted to change all of that anyway. So I'm going to start by switching up the architecture, and then hopefully that will take care of the bugs I'm seeing in playback. If not, it will at least be in an easier place to debug. So I'll show you what I did here in Garrett. Um, I guess the main place to be is this thing, which started as a copying and pasting the demo from the Flutter TTS example. But I'm basically deleting most of it, all of the stuff around the UI, and I'm just calling it Lector TTS state. It will be a widget. I figured might as well go with the everything is a widget point of view. And I'm just copying over methods from that were in the main file, which I think was called Lector player. So all of this TTS stuff we're going to put in this new TTS widget, and that's going to wrap the all of the other stuff, so that when the TTS state changes, it will uh, notify all of the children of the appropriate change. The other thing that I want to do is this TTS widget will really maintain all of the state, including not only the text to speech system, which is what TTS stands for, but also the uh, information about like where we are in the document, the progress through the document, and that information. There has to be some information exchange between this new widget, the TTS widget, and not its child, but its grandchild. The grandchild is the web view, and um, the child in the middle has things like the play button, the pause button, fast forward, rewind. And actually, maybe it's not so necessary for those two to have a parent-child relationship. Maybe the widget can just live on the same level as the play buttons. And but at any rate, this TTS widget will have a controller for the web view, and we'll be able to do things like ask the web view for what the next thing to speak is, and the web view can communicate up to its parent things like we've reached the end of the document. All right, so we might as well kick off the device. We don't need it quite yet, but it takes a little bit to start. And let's figure out where we are. I don't know yet in Android Studio how to have a good like breadcrumb system where I jump to the other file that's associated with a file if I'm working on two files simultaneously. I can put them side by side, and maybe that's enough for now. The Emacs key bindings don't quite work. It's better than all other editors I've seen, including VS Code, by a long margin, but it's still not perfect. I suppose I could set up Emacs to have all of the all of this like unused import stuff. I don't know if this is from LSP or from some Dart tool. I'm sure that there's some mechanism to get all of that stuff in Emacs, but I haven't set it up yet. The other thing I did is I just copied the thing that I used to call lector player, and I'm calling it lector player stateless. And I think I'm just going to rip all the state out, because once the TTS stuff is removed, that was really the state that was in lector player. And then everything else is about things like show the play button if we're paused, show the pause button if we're playing. And that's all stuff that should be easy to do by just passing it into a widget. And maybe we'll begin by, I don't know, where to begin. I guess we'll start at the TTS widget. So all of this stuff, this state, I don't think I need it. This is from the example. I guess I'll just delete it. Set await options I definitely don't need. This is doing some testing to see if it's if we're on Android, and if so, calling this get default engine. I don't know why this is not needed in iOS. But I guess if we need it, we don't need this is Android function. So that if it's not the web and it is Android, I don't know how it can be Android and be the web, but maybe that's a thing. I don't know. I guess I'll leave this. I guess I'll leave some of this here. I suppose it's not hurting anyone right now, and I don't know what I will need. I don't need set this options thing. And these handlers are not useful to me. These are just printing things. We'll get rid of them in a second. I don't really know how is it useful to have this get languages thing that's just calling another function and awaiting it. That seems like you could just call that function. This build method, we need to rewrite from scratch. And we have this engine selection that's doing what? Oh, I think engine section. I think engine section is part of the demo UI. That's a drop down for selecting an engine. And really all of this is going to go. I thought I had deleted this, but maybe I didn't. Some of this will be available in settings, and I probably do need to stop the TTS system on dispose. I don't know when dispose is actually called in terms of the Android lifecycle. And these underscore stop, underscore speak, etc. Mostly they're just calling other functions. Although there's this set state thing here. If we successfully stop or successfully pause, we check if result equals 1. I guess that's the success condition, and then we call set state, which kicks off the magic of the widgety magic. Okay, so this is a little bit cleaner. And now I have to think about these hooks. This stuff could possibly go in a configuration object. I don't think I want to do that now. this late bind. I don't like the late binding. If I understand correctly, the late binding mostly just tells the Dart type checker to back off, and that you know what you're doing. I like the type checker checking correctness, so I don't want to tell it to back off. But what I can do is I'm using futures to make sure that that the type checker is that it has an implementation. So what is the other alternative? So if I have late initialization, I'm not sure what fails. So I'm already seeing things like late initialization error. I don't want to deal with that. Okay, so I am just going to use this future for now. There, if it's not, if it's ugly, I can always change it in the future. But this at least uh, will prevent certain classes of errors. I'm in a function here, I think, so I can just set Flutter TTS. And it's happy with that. Similar here. And I'll just repeat this everywhere. So I don't know what to do on dispose. I guess I could ask if the TTS completer is complete. And if it is complete, I can just grab it, right? Oh, no. I think maybe it's called is complete. Is completed. I'm not sure what the anatomy of a future is. Oh, so okay, so they do have a thing that's like future or, which is fine. Do they have like a general or thing? I don't know. Maybe I can just make async. Uh, can I just make this async? I don't know if I can. This might be a problem, but we'll see. And actually, just as a sanity check, let's ask the AIs what they think. So I'll say in a Flutter stateful widget. All right, it's generally not recommended. Asynchronous operation widget lifecycle. The dispose method is called when a widget is removed from the widget tree. It is designed to be a synchronous cleanup operation. So there's a potential for memory leaks. So if you need to wait for an asynchronous operation before disposing of a widget, you can use a future builder or stream builder to manage the asynchronous data and conditionally dispose of the widget based on the result. I'll ask for an example. Maybe this might just mean waiting until I've got the future to call super dispose. Is disposing is true, stream controller close, super.dispose. Okay. So when is disposing is true, then what happens? Oh, okay. So if we're disposing, we return an empty container to prevent rebuild. Okay, that's ugly. Let me ask about the pros and cons about lazy initialization. I said lazy, but I meant late. So the problems are runtime errors, potential for null pointer exceptions, reduced type safety. And I'll say, what are some alternatives for late initialization for things like services where we only want one, but we have to, but we can't assign it until runtime. So it's saying use get it. You can use the singleton pattern, the factory pattern, the provider pattern. I'll ask, what does it think about using completers? So it has trade-offs. You have delayed initialization, etc. The complexity, especially I am. Okay, so potential for deadlocks. Okay, await can lead to deadlocks, especially in situations where multiple threads or asynchronous operations are involved, and reduce readability. When to consider using completer and await. If you need to initialize an object or service asynchronously, completer and await can be a good choice. If you want to defer the creation of an object or service until it's actually needed, you can use that. Flexibility. If you need flexibility in how the object or service is initialized, they can provide that. Okay, so it seems to say that consider using late initialization or dependency injection framework. I don't think I want to use a separate framework. So let's take a look at the singleton pattern. So I don't remember how globals look in Dart, but I remember them being pretty straightforward. So we have some service, which is static, I guess is the keyword that's doing the work here, which has an instance. And when you call the constructor, I forget what this is. Maybe this is just the notation for a singleton constructor. But we have the underscore with the call round brackets thing, parentheses, you might call them. And we have a static getter. I think this means that the getter is called instance. And if instance is null, then you do what? You assign the underscore instance to my service, this thing, and then return underscore instance. I guess maybe this just makes it private, right? Perhaps. And then the factory pattern is we have this get instance method, which this seems to be basically the same logic, except we are using the public constructor. I think instead of the private constructor. And then provider, it extends change notifier. And you have this static my service provider thing that in implementation of this class, this underscore instance, I think this is a private constructor again, but we'll ask or we'll look it up. And then the get instance, this seems to be basically the same logic, except now we have a change notifier. I'll say, how does the provider pattern differ from the, what was it calling it? The singleton? The singleton pattern. So the provider, it says, utilizes a context tree to share data and services between different parts of the app. It decouples components, makes code more modular and testable, and requires understanding of the context tree and provider concepts. The singleton pattern is simple to implement, guarantees a single instance. The cons is it can lead to tight coupling, making testing and refactoring difficult. The singleton pattern provides a global instance, while the provider pattern can provide instances at different levels of the context tree, for example, global, local, or scoped. The provider pattern offers better dependency management capabilities, allowing for easier dependency injection and testing, and flexibility. The provider pattern is more flexible as it can be used to manage different types of state and dependencies. Okay, so I think the singleton pattern is fine, but I'm going to ask about what this notation is, this syntax. Okay, so it's just a private constructor. All right. So this is some instance. It says the non-nullable variable must be initialized. So in this code, I get an error that the non-nullable variable underscore instance must be initialized. Oh, okay. But how does that solve my problem? Maybe it doesn't. Okay, so I can get rid of that. And so where do I actually add? So this is just some class. So I guess I can um, add methods and stuff. So what is Flutter TTS? We do have a public constructor to Flutter TTS, and it's going to set up some channel. And what does init state do? I'm not sure why I can't just, so in the Flutter TTS example, it was late initialized. And why is that? I assume you can't actually initialize it as a top level variable. That might have been what I tried to do before that was failing. Yeah, we have this late TTS, Flutter TTS, and when is it initialized? Here, under init TTS. So the thing I have now allows me to do that. I'm not sure about this static thing. The way it's so this is assigning right away, and I don't see a way to do this without the TTS service being null, the instance being nullable. In other words, using a kind of late initialization with using late initialization. It's a thing that can be nullable. I can get null pointer errors at runtime. It says to consider using provider. I don't know if provider is any better in that sense. So let's look at the provider pattern. Again, this is nullable, so you have to be returning the nullable instance. Maybe Gemini is just wrong. In Flutter, it makes sense to keep the state above the widgets that use it. Why? In declarative frameworks like Flutter, if you want to change the UI, you have to rebuild it. There's no easy way to have mycart.update with something new. In other words, it's hard to imperatively change a widget from outside. But where's the provider? Okay, so cart model extends change notifier. And this is just calling notify listeners. And then we have change notifier provider. And some consumers. So they're just, it's like sending messages to people. I don't think this necessarily solves my late initialization thing. And so I'm just going to ignore the advice and just do the async stuff, because I think that will, well, deadlock is not great. I'll say, tell me about deadlock in async, in Dart's async implementation. When two or more asynchronous operations are waiting for each other to complete, creating a circular dependency. This prevents both operations from progressing. So example of deadlock, we have task one, async, or resource one is going to wait on a future. Resource two is going to wait on some other future. And task two is going to try to acquire the resources in the reverse order. I guess task two will grab resource two initially, task one will grab resource one initially, and no one will get both. Okay. Yeah, so that seems like a problem that I could get into. But is it? Let's see. Yeah, I mean, I could be awaiting the future thing, I guess, for multiple tasks. I suppose I could just use some nullable runtimey thing. So I'll ask, is there a solution to this problem that neither neither allows runtime null ability nor is prone to deadlock? So if so I'll say that my service depends on a service I don't control that can only be populated during some widgets init state. So I can't create a and I'll just ask, does that affect your suggestion? I'll need to carefully. So if I use dependency injection, I'll need to carefully manage the lifecycle of the dependent service. And store it as a static variable. So this is using await anyway. Using future to wait for the dependent service. Okay, so initialize my service is going to like do the actual initialization. And so I'll say with this solution, you still have a nullable variable that can fail at runtime, right? I think that my solution is perfectly fine. So I'm going to ignore what they're saying. I think this is the least complicated solution to this current problem. But I did kind of like its idea of trying to prevent bad dispose behavior by keeping track of this variable is disposing. And when we're disposing, we're just going to return an empty container. We're going to return a constant to prevent rebuild. Okay, and so just to appease the type checker, we're going to return the empty container anyway. Okay, so now that's slightly better. I don't really think any of these get languages things. I don't need those. This is all config for the TTS engine, and I don't think I need it either. I'm just going to get rid of it. I don't know why. I guess this state is fine. Playing and stopped. I think of paused and stopped as the same. I think the thing that they're getting at is that for iOS, there's a state called paused where you maintain the queue, and then stopping is different because it deletes the queue. I think I deleted TTS state. I don't think I did that. Oh yes, I did. Okay. All right. So maybe this is useful to keep track of. I don't think that these functions need to be in here. I guess if You can throw them here on the bottom. I'll put them in, well, I'll put them in the bottom. They're basically junk functions. I could create a junk drawer or a util folder, but once you go down that road, it's things things can get bad. Okay, so this is looking slightly better. Now what? Is get default engine still a thing? Did I delete it? Okay. I don't need these print statements for sure. I have this speak implementation where we're just going to call it speak on the text. Okay. And now. Okay, and so now I want to have the children. So I'm going to grab the what? From lector player, we have the widget stuff. So we have scaffold, app bar, and then the body. The scaffold and app bar, I think, can go where? They can go in main probably. Oh, I already have this TTS state thing that I wasn't using. Was I? I'm not sure. Okay, so here it has a material app, etc. So I'm going to replace this with this scaffold stuff. Up to here. Then the body will be the lector TTS widget, which I guess can be const. So where does scaffold end? Here. That's material app, and then what? This closes the build context. What am I not getting right? App bar looks fine. Scaffold looks fine. Oh, we need a semicolon. Of course. Okay, and let's reformat the code. So I don't think I need this TTS state thing anymore. I'm going to repurpose this class for lector TTS prefs, I guess, preferences, and we'll have auto advance as a preference. And maybe that's the only preference for now. We'll add speech rate and all of that stuff later. Okay. Actually, I don't need the separate class. We'll handle that later. Okay, so we'll just keep track of bool auto advance, which will set to true, automatically advance to the next article when done with the current article. And is disposing, and we might as well have a comment here. Is disposing is used to prevent dispose failures, I guess I'll call it. Due to TTS completer being async. And neither of these are used so far, and that's fine. And I feel like these can probably go on the bottom. When you're reading the code, the first thing you care about is probably not the getters. The first thing is maybe things like initialization. Okay, and now I think we're ready to look at these handlers. And so what do we want to happen? Oh, no, we're not ready because we need the audio places. And we're going to move the audio places from the web view to the TTS thingamajiggy that we just created, the widget. So this linked hash map is going to go here. Is it though? No, I think it's going to get its own place. And what will we call that? Maybe I'll call it audio transport, for lack of a better name. One second. There's some car alarm going off outside. I don't think it's mine, but let me go let me go check. It was not mine, but I still don't know what it was. Car alarms are something I used to hear much more when I lived in the city, but here in the woods, they're not so usual. All right, so let's do audio transport. Okay, so we've got the linked hash map of audio places. What else do we need? We need I wanted to have like an iterator like API. So I guess we have some next function, some previous function. And I don't know what I don't know what they return yet. Maybe they return the audio place. I guess we might as well. And I guess I have to import this stuff is what these red squiggles are telling me. And it wants me to convert to async. Is that what I want? Yeah, I guess so. Although that doesn't get rid of the squiggle. Is it mad that I haven't implemented it? Okay, so it's returning nullable. That's fine with me for now. I mean, it's not returning nullable. It's just unhappy because it can't prove that it returns a valid audio place. On the other hand, next and previous don't actually necessarily return an audio place. They can fail. And I guess they can fail. And when they fail, I guess I could raise an exception. It seems like exceptions are accepted in Dart. I feel like I don't love them. I guess maybe it's just not up to me. Maybe exceptions are the way to go if you're using Dart. Your Dart code can throw and catch exceptions. In contrast to Java, all of Dart's exceptions are unchecked exceptions. Methods don't declare which exceptions they might throw, and you aren't required to catch any exceptions. So there's also asserts. In production code, assertions are ignored. Okay, that's the ordinary thing. So how does the code that Google writes deal with exceptions? There are certainly some user-facing exceptions like the parse error that we saw in the last coding video. We have this future error, but this doesn't seem to be an exception. This is throwing an exception, and we do have try catch here. So it looks like the Google developers use try and catch internally. So I guess that's good enough for me. So there is some iterator class, iterator of E interface for getting items one at a time from an object. We also have for in. It's initially positioned before the first element. Before accessing the first element, the iterator thus must be advanced using move next to point to the first element. So I'll ask, is there something like a Dart iterator that has both a next and a previous? So there's an iterable reversed property. This method returns a new iterable that iterates over the elements of the original iterable in reverse order. Or I can implement my own that has move next, but also move previous. Okay, so that's what I'll do. I don't think I need to implement it as abstract. And then the methods that I need to override are move next and move previous. And then we have this current method. So we'll set the index to -1 at first. I think that's what they told us to do, to start it off on the, yeah, okay. And we'll call this element index, which is an index into the HTML element. And then we'll also have a text span index. In order to refactor, I need to create a variable of that name, I think. So I'm just creating a temporary variable. I guess I didn't like that. What? And then I'll ask I'll ask Gemini to create I'll start a new thread. Create create a design and then generate code for the following. Create a design and generate code for the following, : why can't I edit it? Let's try this one more time. Create a design and generate code for the following, : space, paragraph. Okay, so the first condition is that for an iterator, for a multi-level iterator, the first level of the iterator points to a book in a multi-volume series. The second level of the iterator points to a page in that volume. I'll say, what are the challenges here in the design? What are the challenges in the design? After you think through them, generate some Dart code to implement this idea. So we did this in the previous video, I think, or maybe the video before that. But basically, you have to figure out for any given book, when you fall off the end of the book, you have to go to the next book. You have to go one level up and reset the book pointer. And then we also have to go backwards. So you have to figure out when you go to the beginning of the book and kind of fall off that way and decrement things. So it says the design challenges are data structure. It needs a way to store the current position within the multi-volume series and the current page. A simple map or list might not be sufficient, especially if the series has a complex structure. For example, volumes with varying page counts or irregular numbering, which we do have to deal with, and also boundary conditions. It should handle the case where the user tries to iterate past the end of a volume or a series. This might involve checking the last volume and page, etc. Yep. If it's used frequently with large data sets, performance becomes a concern. They should be efficient to avoid bottlenecks. And usability. Okay, and so how do they do it? They have a map from int to int of volumes, maps volume number to total pages. You can add a volume, and when you add a volume, it's going to add it to the volumes map and record its total pages. But I guess when you add the volume, you know how many pages it has. This, I guess, is just like a factory method. This class seems to be nested in the multi-volume series class, and the multi-volume iterator has a reference to the outer class, it looks like. The current volume is 1, current page is 1. You initialize the multi-volume iterator with this .series, which is calling that. We have this has next, which is going to check whether the current volume is less than or equal to the length, the number of volumes, and the current page is less than or equal to the thing that's in the index. And then when we call next, we check if we have next, in which case we increment the current page. If the current page is bigger than the current volume, then we increment current volume and set current page to 1. Okay. So so here are a few. So the iterator now needs to support iterating backwards. Are there additional challenges? And then after you think through the challenges, generate the Dart code. So the current map structure might not be optimal for backward traversal. But what are we actually... I don't think we're actually... Where's series.volumes? Okay, and so it suggests a linked list or a more specialized data structure might be necessary. I don't really see why, although that's the same conclusion I came to, so maybe I saw why yesterday and I'm forgetting. And we need to extend the API. So now it has these nullable previous and next like pointer things, which points to a volume node, and the node has a volume number and total pages. A volume node has a volume number with total pages. Okay. and we keep reference to the head and the tail, and we have this add volume function again. And if the head is null, the head and tail are both the new volume. Otherwise, we have a head and we assume, I guess, that the tail is exists because if it had been null, then it exists by this part of the if statement. So I guess tail is assumed to be non-null, and we set next to the new volume. We set the new volume previous to tail, so we can walk backwards, and then we set the tail to new volume. It seems that now tail and tail.next are both the same new volume. I think this is an error. And then when you ask for the new volume iterator, we give you a multi-volume iterator at head. Okay, so you can ask the series for an iterator, I guess is what this is saying. And the multi-volume iterator has a nullable current node. Current page is set to 1. And has next is a predicate that checks if the current is not null. And has previous checks whether the previous one is null. And next is, if we have next, then we're going to increment the current page. And if the current page is bigger than the current node's total pages, then current is set to current next. So we're walking to the right down the linked list, and current page is set to 1. So we're at the beginning of the page again. Although this should probably be 0 because we're 0 indexing. And has previous does what? Yeah, okay, so it's checking the previous one. And we'll decrement current page. If current page is less than or equal to 0, then we've fallen off the beginning of the book. We set current to current previous and current page to total pages. And then the getter for current volume number is if current has a volume number. I don't know what this double question mark is, but I guess maybe 0 is the default, and the current page number just returns the current page number. So overall, I like this. I don't think every single line is correct, which is maybe mildly concerning because that might lead to somewhat difficult debugging. But I think that this is just a linked list implementation. So I'm trying to think of, is there anything that's actually harder given the fact that we are planning to load these lazily? I guess yeah. So the thing that's harder is that if we're not willing to load the whole thing all in one go, like if we're loading into memory a long book, then our iterator can reach the end of the line in 2 different ways. One is it can legitimately iterate off the beginning or off the end of the book. And the other is it's essentially a slice into the true iterator. And so it can run out of the stuff that we've loaded into memory, and that should trigger a loading into memory of more kind of like pages or whatever. So I'll say now suppose that the volume and page numbers are too many to load into memory. We need to be able to start the iterator at some arbitrary volume and page, e.g. Volume 5, page 30, and iterate forward and backward. And I'll say now there are two ways to reach the end of the iterator. One is we can be at the beginning. We can try to call previous at the beginning of the first volume, alternately at the end of the last. And two, we can try to call previous or what is it, next? When we've reached the slice of the index that can fit into RAM. How can we differentiate 2 from 1? What are new edge conditions to consider? And how can we make this efficient? Please generate some code. When dealing with large-scale, multi-level iteration where the entire index cannot fit into memory, several new challenges arise. Indexing. We need a mechanism to efficiently access specific volumes and pages without loading the entire index into memory. This could involve using a disk-based index or a streaming approach. Yeah. End of series detection, differentiating between reaching the beginning and reaching the end of the available data is crucial. This might require additional metadata or a mechanism to determine if the current volume is the last one. To avoid excessive disk I/O, we need to optimize the way we fetch data from the index and the volumes. This could involve caching frequently. And so then it tries to, or perhaps does implement a disk-based end of series detection. So suppose that we can easily read the number of volumes I'm not even going to really read this. So we can read the number of volumes, but not pages in those volumes. From disk. Okay, and so this is it's starting to have like a B tree, etc. Um, let me provide it with another option. I'll say one more option is to uh, I'll say we have the option to encode the number of pages in each volume as, how do I want to put this? I guess that doesn't really matter. All right, but so let's look at this multi-volume iterator. So we have a start volume and a start page that we're now passing in, saying where we want to start the iterator. And it's going to get the index of the first where entry volume number is equal to start. Why do we need to do that? Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this one that does not have the complications with it. I think it's this one. And we're going to start here with this code. I don't know why it doesn't like this code. I'm wondering if you cannot. Uh, okay, so classes can't be declared inside of other classes, so that's the error. I don't know which part is which part of which class, but maybe that's right. So this class looks fine. Multi-volume series is in trouble. So has previous is defined where? Here. Okay, so this seems better. So this multi-volume series is, this class is basically a linked list that you can grab an iterator. I don't know why the iterator needs to be a separate class, although I guess that kind of makes sense. And you can add a node. I think I want the multi-volume series to be maybe here. So, okay. Let's open two copies of this side by side. And instead of volume, well, do I want to keep the volume and page? I'm going to rename volume to book. I'll keep book and page just because it's easier to reason about than this like text span thing. We'll comment that other class out just to prevent the red error indicators. Okay, so we've got this multi-book series. We've got a book node. And let's just assume that this is mostly right. Although, yeah, there was an error here in the previous incarnation of this, but I think Gemini corrected it. We'll just call refactor here to make sure that we're respecting the lower camel case naming convention. And now we need to modify this so that the multi-book series should know it should know the max volumes. And maybe we should let's see. Should we keep track of the page name? I guess that will help with things like debugging. Or how about the article ID? No. I don't want to do article ID because that won't exist until we hit until it's persisted to database, and you'll be able to load pages that are not in the database yet. So the general page won't have an article ID, but we can always like take the title. And then what is is it like this? Okay. All right, so now we have max volumes, and we can add a book. And every time we check whether we have next, we check if the current is not null. Let me think for a second. Okay, so what if we have can load next and can load previous. And can load previous will just check whether so when we load from the we're not really loading from disk, we're loading from the web view. We are only going to load a volume at a time. So in fact, I'm going to call this can load. I like volume better. I'm going to undo, I'm going to undo this rename. And maybe this will behave like Emacs where it will preserve capitalization. No, it won't. All right. A book is like necessarily a codex. I think a volume can be more generic. So it feels better to me, although pages are not. If you have pages, you probably have a codex. Okay. So we have this can load previous volume and can load next volume. And that's just going to check whether the so what fails here? So if I call current, if I return current question mark like this, what happens if current is null? If current is null, the expression current question mark dot previous will evaluate to null as well. Okay, so that means, so does that mean that bool is nullable? Hmm. Okay, is there a way to rewrite so that so that a null value is never returned? So obviously we can just return false on a null value. But I was hoping there might be some syntax that like takes a null check and returns false if the null check fails. But maybe there's not. So is there syntax to do a call like foo dot bar dot baz equals and have the function return false if any of foo, bar, or baz is null? I'm guessing probably not. Oh, what? Okay. So I guess it's saying that since, let's see. So in this case, so current, it's saying current would evaluate to null. So has previous, if there's no current, it would check if null is not equal to null, which would be false. Is that what we want? I guess so. Okay, so maybe that's good enough. Okay, so then can load next volume should do what? Okay, so this is saying if current is null, it means that the iterator is at the beginning of the series, so it has previous returning null as the expected behavior, indicating that there are no previous elements to iterate over. So does return false if, oops, if current is null? Okay. So that contradicts what it said before, but that's life with LLMs. Okay, so we're going to check if return current and what are we checking about current? Current is a volume node, so we're looking at its volume number and checking if that's greater than 0, although this should be a lowercase v. And if we can load the next volume, we're going to check if current the current volume number is, I guess, bigger than or equal to max volumes. And so for that to work, the volume iterator needs to know about max volumes. So we'll just pass it in. I don't know why sometimes we need the curly braces and sometimes we don't. This is obviously not correct. But this does appear to be a constructor, although this is a different function because the capitalization. It seems like this is fine like this. I don't know why. I guess maybe this gives you the named parameters and also, oh, you know what? So I guess that for named parameters, they might be by default optional, and that's why you need required. But this is just a function call, right? So I think all parameters are required, and they're also positional. It doesn't like this because this is not unconditionally evaluatable. Although, why can we do it for other things? Like not equal to 0. I keep forgetting that the undo is different than an Emacs. So it seems perfectly happy to say something is not equal to 0. I guess it's I guess because equality can check whether things are null, maybe, and but there's no inequalities for nulls. So we'll just do this. Okay, and so am I doing these the right direction? So this will be can I load previous, and if we're bigger than 0, then we have 1 before it. So that will return true. So that's correct. Can load next volume. If we have to be strictly less than, this is not correct. We have to be strictly less than max volumes minus 1. Okay, so that was a bug, and now I think it's not a bug. Okay, and then for has next, we'll check the current is not null or can load next. Okay, and so hmm. Uh, I'm going to add new methods. We're just going to go all out. I'll do has next in memory. And this will be the original implementation of has next. And similarly for has previous in memory. Okay, and so now when we call next, we'll see if we have next, and if we do, we'll say if we have next in memory, then we'll do this implementation. Otherwise, we'll say that we need to load next from page, and this should probably be called something else. We may not just, we probably don't want to just load the next single volume. We might want to load the next k volumes, but I'm not going to worry about that now. And so the has previous, we're going to break down similarly. So this is pretty slightly inefficient because uh, has previous already calls has previous in memory, but I don't think I care about that right now. I just want to get the logic right. Okay, and now we need to implement these load next and load previous from page. And the iterator should so I guess what really so that this multi-volume series I guess doesn't know where we are in the iterator. We could move the iterator methods into this multi-volume series. That would give multi-volume series uh, um, visibility into where we are in the iterator. So let me think about this for a bit. I think only one. So when we get the multi-volume iterator, we get it at head. Yeah. So let's see. I think I'm going to get rid of the iterator. Am I? Yeah, I guess I will. And then we'll just move the state. The state will live with the multi-volume series. My cursor froze. I kind of liked having it separated. Uh, no, I am going to keep it separated. It's nicer to have like classes of more bounded size. But now they have to communicate a little bit, I guess. And so the thing is, I'm going to pass in a function. So I'm going to pass back what I'm going to call an extension callback, which will somehow extend the iterator. I don't know what its type is yet. And instead of calling load previous from page, I'm going to call extension callback at current page. And I guess I'll have some enum saying that whether to load backwards or forward. So I'll just grab this enum syntax here. So I'll have forward, backwards, and then maybe we can have both later. So I'll say and then some number of pages. Let's load 5 pages by default. And we'll do the opposite for the forward direction. And so what is the extension callback? I guess it has to take these parameters, and I don't know yet whether its behavior should be async. So what should happen? So you have some iterator, which is like a slice into this thing that we're gonna, I guess, think of as on disk, but really is in just contained in the web view. It might be on disk depending on whether the web view loads large files lazily or not, which I think it probably does. So so you're going to call next, and next is going to be kind of like an array in a lot of languages, where once you've reached the end of the like underlying memory region, they're going to try to find another memory region to allocate. That might be a slower operation. I guess you could ask that to complete synchronously. Although I think that ultimately the functions that implement it are going to be async. So I could just make next and previous async, or I could add new methods that so like I guess the thing I'm thinking of like is should the caller have to worry about the fact that things are loading in memory? When you call next, should you expect that it is always going to advance, or should it sometimes tell you that it could advance if you do more work? It's appealing to have the API try to hide the fact that it's doing more work, but that also can be a little bit obnoxious when uh, there might be situations where you want to have control over how that extra work is done. For example, you may want to know that the following call to next might take significantly longer than the typical call to next. And if I don't expose that in the API, then the caller will never have access to that information. And so every time they call next, they might have to think about the worst case rather than the typical case. I guess that's fine. I'll just make it async, and then the caller can have the illusion that each call is the same. And then I guess as we tune and if there are bottlenecks, we can fix the bottlenecks. Maybe we can preserve the illusion that if we don't force the caller to have to implement against uh, implement against the fact that some calls might be slow, then we won't be training the caller to think that certain calls are slow that eventually we optimize away, for example. Okay, so we do need this extension callback function. It's called here. I wonder if I can create a thing from it. We'll create a function. Should I return a future void or a future bool? I guess the error handling, the error handling in Dart we've decided is try catch, exception throwing. So I guess void future of void is fine, and then if there's an issue, I guess we'll just throw it as an exception. And so this extension callback will be a type. And I forget how this is done. I defined one in another file. It's a void function. And then the types go in here, int, iterator extension, and int, I think. So this is the type. And I guess that maybe when you ask for the iterator, you have to pass in the callback. And there's some, what do I need, a semicolon? Okay, so that's more or less how that's going to be. And now we need to modify this to, instead of using volume nodes, we're going to, so instead of volume number and total pages, we are going to use audio places. And I guess the place for that is add volume. Okay, and so when we call, where's add volume? Okay, so add volume says you give it a volume number and a total pages. We're not going to do that. We're going to give it an audio place. Okay, and then from the audio place, we'll set the volume number. Is the ID, and the total pages is audio place dot text spans dot length, and we're going to rename this function add audio place. Now, all of this stuff can be computed from the audio place. But I kind of like not having to do work in the audio place. Sorry, in the volume node class. That makes the volume node class dumber. I guess this is basically it, right? What else do we need? I could call this now audio place series. Here, next can fail, but I guess I already said that we're going to just, we'll have to advance it in a try catch block. Okay. So let's go back. That was quite a diversion. Let's go back to what we were initially doing, which is this TTS widget. Did I delete the definition of this class? I think I must have. How do I tell this get history to go away? Okay. All right. So now we're in a position to think about the start handler here. So we're going to implement this in another function to make it slightly easier to test. Where do we want that to be? I guess here is fine. And so the handler is going to be a void callback, which is just any void function. And the first thing the start handler should do is it should check to see if it has a valid document loaded. And if it doesn't, then it should bail out. And so how do we want to record the fact that there's a valid document? Well, the web view is going to load the document, and it will have to give us some notification that that the document's available. We could do that a couple of different ways. We could have a notification listener. We could also pass pass callbacks down. We could use inherited widgets. And which one do I want to use? Well, let's take a look at what does the web view actually do when it loads a document. We've got this navigator, the navigation delegate, which defines the JavaScript functions and adds the JavaScript channel. And then when does it actually call get text for ID? It doesn't do that until I think it's until we ask it to start playing. Well, one thing we can do is we can take this navigation delegate and give it to the Flutter TTS widget, and then pass that down into the web view. So what does the web view controller do? Should we do the same thing? We have from platform, load file, etc. Load Flutter asset, load request. I feel like we don't need the web view controller to be in the Flutter TTS thingamajiggy. We may need the lector web view controller. Yeah, okay, so let's try this. Let's take the lector web view controller. No, let's leave that there. So here's the navigation delegate. And what are we doing with it? We're mainly adding an on-page finished callback to make sure that we define the JavaScript functions. And we do need to do that. And I don't want to prevent the if I move this up, then if the grandparent widget or parent widget wants to also define an on-page finished function, then they will conflict. So why don't we let the web view keep a hold of its callbacks, and I guess use notifications. And so we are already using notifications somewhere. Where are they? We have this notification listener that's listening for when the play status changed. We probably don't really need notifications for this. So what do we want to do? First of all, we can get rid of the scaffolding. Didn't we move that somewhere else anyway? I'm pretty sure we moved that to main. We have app bar, then we call elector TTS. So let's go here. We'll get rid of scaffold and app bar. Yeah. Okay. So this is now a combination of a bottom navigation bar with the notification listener, which is not okay because we need something to wrap it. And the thing that's currently wrapping it is a scaffold. And what is a scaffold? What does a scaffold's body actually do? Maybe what I want is the build method. Okay, so it does some assertions. We've got text direction and then children. This is some add if not null. This is checking if the app bar is not null. This is something about the bottom sheet. Maybe I want bodybuilder. No. So I think this is well. I just kind of want to know uh, what the wrapping widget is. Maybe actually I can. Well, I can't run this right now. This part of the layout has the same effect as putting the app bar and body in a column and making the body flexible. What's different is that in this case, the app bar appears after the body in the stacking order, so the app's shadow is drawn on top of the body. I don't know what that means, but let's try just using a column. Maybe a column is all I need. So let's get rid of this stuff. Let's replace scaffold with column. And then what does column need? What, something like children? Although, okay, so bottom navigation bar is part of scaffold, so that needs to go. That needs to go there. Okay. Um, what does that mean? Is there some other way to get the bottom navigation bar set? I guess not. So let's go back to main. Let's grab the scaffold. I think what I'm ultimately doing is like recreating is possibly just recreating the same structure I had before, except calling it lector TTS widget. But that wouldn't be the end of the world because as I'm rebuilding it, I am changing some stuff. I'm certainly thinking about it differently. Okay, so now we have the scaffold, and we're going to need the bottom navigation bar thing. We don't have item tapped or anything. And in fact, this whole thing is going to be we'll call it lector bottom bar. And it's going to, I guess, probably take in whether we are playing. I guess why not just take in the whole TTS state? So instead of extending bottom navigation bar, I'm just going to have a widget that returns it. I guess that's okay. It can't be stateless though. Can it? It certainly doesn't need a web view right now. This stuff, I guess I'm just going to delete. No, I'm not. Maybe I'll comment it out. Why is this not redrawing? Maybe I have a syntax error. Huh. Maybe it could read into my comments. It just has like a simple regex or something that doesn't care if something is commented out. I'm just going to just trash everything. Okay, and so can we actually make this stateless? I'm not sure. But we can try. So we'll have a final TTS state. So I need to take key. I'll put it at the beginning of the constructor. Or does it have to be at the end? Maybe it has to be at the end. Okay, so so this now has a constructor, and now instead of is playing, this will be TTS. This is kind of silly, but I'm just going to take this getter that I said I didn't need before. And Android Studio will freeze. And now I need to say what happens when one of these is tapped. So it's going to set current index to the selected index. I think that I'm not doing any like conditional formatting on current index. I don't even know if a navigation bar is the right way to think about this control. I'm guessing that I do need to keep state just for this. Let's look at what is it? Let's look at what Finamp does for their navigation bar. So they use a now playing bar for the bottom navigation bar. I think that's a different thing than the media controls. What about something like pause? So this is in lib/components. This is what they have a stream builder of media state. And if we'll look, I guess, at the stream snapshot, and if we are playing, then we do some work, and we're going to return a material of a bunch of stuff, including some media queries, a like fitted box. I don't know what any of this stuff is. A list tile. And I guess down here we have like I don't know what trailing is, but we have a row that has icon buttons, including the stop button, a pause button. We have a key here because otherwise the inkwell moves over to the play pause button. I don't know what the inkwell is. But we have also, so depending on whether we are playing, we get the play or the pause. And when they are pressed, they call audio handler pause. And this is a row inside of a list tile. Is that right? A list tile is a single fixed height row that typically contains some text as well as leading or trailing icon. I'm not sure this is the thing that appears at the bottom of the screen. This might just be like as you're scrolling through looking at songs, this might be the play button that appears next to each song in your list. Although it says bottom nav bars, default elevation is 8. So now playing extends stateless widget. And I guess they're using this like instead of bottom nav bar. I don't know if it's this page. Hang on. Okay, so I have a screenshot in front of me. I don't know how to get it onto the screen to show you guys, but what I see is an album and a stop and a pause, which I think is the same stuff we saw here. Here's stop. Somewhere there should be an album cover, album image. So it is this list tile thing. What is wrapping the list tile? Some padding, a dismissible, something about a progress slider, a safe area, a sized box. Okay. And what am I even trying to find out? I guess this is probably a stateful. No, this is stateless. Okay. But I guess it's only stateless because it has this stream that's providing it a stream of state. Is that right? Yes. Okay. So I guess I don't know. Like what safe area and sized box are and media query are all doing. I don't know what a stack is. So a widget is a that positions its children relative to the edges of its box. Okay. What if I just set current index to -1 all the time? Probably going to fail. And then on tap, uh, we have to uh, we have to say what to do. So what is that going to be? That's going to we have to tell our parent that the thing got tapped. What's the way to do that? Well, one is instead of passing TTS state here, we could pass a reference to the whole parent. Is that bad? I'll say in Flutter, is it bad to give the child widget a reference to the parent widget? So it must be bad. So it can call functions on the parent. It's generally not recommended. Directly pass a reference to the parent. Okay. Yeah. In fact, I don't need this class at all. And I think this is literally the same as if I just renamed this other class. This doesn't need to be a separate class. So that's that's fine. So let's go ahead and grab this whole thing, this build method. Now, where was it? This TTS widget. So do we have a start method? We have a pause, stop, etc. I guess let's rename this speak to start. It's not called anywhere, so we can just call it start like that without refactoring. Now let's create a new method. And what is the, so playing is the new state. Okay, and so when we start, it will record the fact that we are now playing. And we have to figure out what to do there. There should be some play loop. Okay, so this will set the, okay, so this will just call start. And then I don't know why, I guess we don't have a log method yet. All right, so we just cleaning up variables here. Okay, so now I need to implement what happens when rewind and fast forward are tapped. I guess I will start with just these existing methods rather. I'm not happy that this widget class is now becoming like a god class again. I had wanted to slice it up, but I think I just don't know enough about Flutter to know how to do that without like taking on some framework. And I know it's possible, so I guess I'll just have it be a god class for now, and if possible, slice it up later. So currently, we have this notification logic that is notifying that playing status changed, calling it on controller. Controller here is the web view controller. So this is notifying the web view that new things need to happen. This was the setup when the web view was controlling the playback. And so we need a more precise a more precise way to pass information to the web view. I think specifically we need to give it the audio place. So the web view needs access to the audio places for two reasons. One is it needs to know where to highlight, and the other is it needs to be able to feed data into the audio place because it's the thing that has access to the HTML document. So what we really need to do with toggle play pause is if the if is playing, we are going to pause. We'll await pause. If otherwise, we are not playing, so we're going to await play. So I will make start async again. Why not? And now that I'm thinking about it, I kind of want to have. So what is it? What is our state? We have playing, stopped, paused, continued. And these all have, I guess, well-defined meanings. I'm not going to change that. I was thinking about adding a new state. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. The new state would be basically be like whether we are. It'll be like the difference between the track of a like a CD or playlist playing and whether the playlist as a whole is playing. But I don't think that I actually need that extra state. All right. So this so when we toggle, we're going to await pause or await start, and then we'll notify that the TTS status is changed. I don't think we need to do that. So let's rename this function. I'll call it highlight audio plays. That'll be the callback. And it's going to be a different function. And it's going to be a function of, I guess, mainly audio plays. And we need a thing to put into it. So we need to figure out, so audio places. I think we could make this multi-volume series be final. Actually, I think that this one can be late. Uh, since we're not dealing with a service, I'm okay with this being late. No, it's going to be nullable. And what? I guess in the web view thing, let's see. So I guess that once we have a controller, uh, this gives us a way to notify the parent as well. So I guess we shall. So we'll have this void function of the multi-volume series, and it will be called notify parent of, what will it be called? We'll call it notify parent of audio places. The names are just getting worser and worser. Okay, so and then on the delegate on page finished, we're going to define the JS functions. Then we're going to call notify controller. Where is it? Widget.controller or something? Okay, so I need to implement this, and I guess what are we doing here? So this is substate, and in the constructor, I guess what we're doing is we're setting these implementations. But this is going to be a non-null function that we're passing in from the parent. And so I think that we need to call it from widget. And the only thing we really need to know is the title and the max pages. Okay, and so I need the title, and I need the where is this? All right, so I need the title and the max pages, and those are I'm going to get both from calling these JavaScript functions. So where is the metadata one? So let's see if we can find it. There's get text for ID, move audio cursor. Hang on one sec. Yeah, I think okay. So I think the reason I can't find these functions is because this git commit doesn't depend on the one where I define them, and so instead of merging things, I'm just going to hard code some stuff, and then after merge, I'll deal with it. All right, so we'll have this highlight audio place needs to be defined. Which is here. And what is it doing? This is doing the seek stuff. We don't need to do that here. But I don't think I've moved it elsewhere. I guess that doesn't matter. Because this is now taken over by the multi-volume cursor logic. So let's just delete all of this. We can delete the play loop and stop playing, and this load function. And then what does highlight audio place need to do? Well, it should have some audio place. And we'll get from the audio place the ID. What is it? We'll call like move audio cursor to the ID. I guess we should know whether we are diverged. No. I think only the web view needs to know whether we are diverged. So let's just keep that as a bool. We also don't need is playing here, or current index or text span index. Okay. Okay, so we're going to move audio cursor. That could possibly throw some sort of error. Maybe. We have this this post message logic. I kind of forget how that works. And I deleted the function that used it. Let's look it up. So Flutter, WebView, JavaScript error. So JavaScript, I guess channel. Oh, okay. So we have this. We just have like on message received. Are we using it? Yes, I think we're just logging as a warning. Okay. So we're going to move the audio cursor, and then we are going to. So really, what we should do is, if the audio cursor fails to move, we should probably propagate something up. And I don't know what would happen there. Like that should indicate some sort of failure condition. But it's not even clear like when that can happen, and it's also not clear what I would even do with it. So I'm not going to go through the rigmarole of wiring it up to transmit that information. Okay, so I need to move the audio cursor, and then do I need to do anything else? I get the document length. Oh, I do have this function. What was I thinking? Oh, huh. Okay, so in the we yeah. So I'm going to get this document size and pass that in. And I don't think that needs to have a completer. I think I was overdoing it with the completers, but this can be a nullable int, I suppose. And document title similarly. And then maybe the navigation delegate somehow knows what the title is. We certainly have the URL. So should I just use the URL? Yeah, I guess so. And then what? Then what? It's not obvious to me how to get the URL. I have this URL changed thing, but I don't want to have the URL and the length set um, in different places, because the URL could change and the document doesn't fully load, and so those could become uh, disconnected. Okay, so there does seem to be a current URL thing. Okay, so now we set the title and size. It's going to be title and not URL, which is what I wanted anyway. And then if we're down here, hopefully we are in a position to notify parent of audio places. And I guess we might as well do this here. Wait, so what's wrong with this? So why? What? Oh no, yeah, I see what my problem is. So this is the return value goes here, and then the arguments go here, right? Yeah. And do I actually need this? I think I do. Okay. All right, and now when I create this controller, I need to say what happens with this widgety thing. I guess this controller can also be late. And then the callback will be something. Yeah, I guess this will just set audio places to multi-volume series with the appropriate title and max volumes. This function actually should be void. Okay, so that's I guess that's progress. So now we are setting the audio places, and this callback, in fact, gets called every time the URL changes, and that's not obvious to me from reading this code. It kind of looks like this is called once, although if you're familiar with the syntax, it should be clear. But I'm going to extract the method anyway and call this the set audio places callback. And then that's just a little bit clearer. Okay. And now what happens? So now we have a way to set the audio places, and we need to have a way now to ask the web view to populate audio places. And we will do that by passing in some non-null audio places container, the multi-volume thingamajig, and having the web view call will we? Maybe we can just have the so there's at least two things we can do. One is that we can pass the audio places to the web view, essentially giving them a pack of envelopes and saying, here, fill these envelopes, and then give them back to me once they're filled. or we can give the TTS widget direct ability to call these JavaScript functions. And I guess it's better to pass in the envelopes and have the WebView controller just fill envelopes on demand. So let's do that. So we need another function, and we need to make sure that Dart is not going to pass by copy, pass by value, I guess. So yes, in Dart, you work with references to objects just like in Java. Okay, so that should be fine. And so then we can have a void function. It's just going to have a side effect, which is to populate the audio places. And then so we'll have start and stop, which are the start volume, stop volume. And then that's enough information where the web view can be pretty dumb about the logic. So we had talked about in the multi-volume iterator thing, it may have to like load stuff from the disk if the thing that you're reading is long enough, and I'd like to keep that logic outside of the web view so that the web view can be a little bit dumber. This has to be a void, a nullable function, because its implementation is set in, it's set after it's created. And what's it going to do? Well, it's going to it's not going to check to see if the audio places is already populated. It's just going to try to populate them. And maybe what we will maybe we'll return an int. And maybe that int will be like how much of the request we were able to service. And we'll just set it to the start volume. No, I guess we'll start at 0. And we'll just call get text for ID. We will await it. and I have to figure out. I deleted all the code that told me what my previous implementation was. So let's look at the git diff. So I just see if it's the two. I don't know what to call this string. The string consisting of a quotation of the empty string, and then we like call split text into paragraphs. I don't want to accept or reject. I just want to copy it. I'll make this error message better. So unable to read text at ID I. Okay, so we are going to call it split into paragraphs. We have to call as string here. And split into paragraphs should return what? Lector text spans. And then in the audio places, dot add audio place. Okay. And so hopefully this adds audio place at the correct ID. No, it doesn't. So how do I want to handle this? Let me think. I gotta. So let's see. I don't think this is a quick fix, and I'm running out of disk space, so I have to stop anyway. So why don't I just go ahead and stop here? I'll think about how to remedy this. I don't think there's an obvious solution. I may have to abandon the linked list structure, or I might have to do like a linked list of maps or a map of linked lists. So why don't I consider this question and then come back after I've had some lunch or whatever.